Once again, we're taking a hard look at the Dallas Cowboys and the changes they need to make, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Let's be honest, something's got to give. The issues are piling up, and it's time for real adjustments that actually make a difference. Now, before we dive deeper into the fixes this defense desperately needs, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. And of course, hit that bell icon so you never miss an update on the latest NFL stories and Cowboys discussions. Alright, let's get into it. One of the first tangible adjustments this team could make is simple: start blitzing more. It's been painfully conservative so far. Against the Carolina Panthers, the Cowboys blitzed only 5 times, that's it. On those plays, Bryce Young went 3 of 4 for 29 yards, a touchdown, and took 1 sack. Sure, not perfect results, but 5 blitzes in an entire game? That's way too cautious for a defense that's already struggling. Here's the thing, Dallas isn't exactly elite when it comes to blitzing efficiency. According to Next Gen Stats, they rank around .31 EPA per play on blitzes. But when you're already playing poorly across the board, why not take some chances? At least try to create chaos, force mistakes, and give your defense a spark. The Cowboys generate about a 49% pressure rate when they do blitz, which shows there's potential there. The defense just needs to stop playing scared and trust its athletes to make plays. If you're going down, go down swinging. Here's where it gets interesting: when the Cowboys don't blitz, their pressure rate drops to about 35%. When they do blitz, it jumps close to 49%. That difference may sound small on paper, but it's massive in real football terms. Even a 0.3-second improvement in average pressure time changes everything. It doubles the sack rate and forces quarterbacks into bad decisions. The problem is clear: Dallas can't consistently get home with a 4-man rush. Outside of a few bright spots like DeMarcus Lawrence, they've struggled to generate pressure without bringing extra heat. And when you can't get pressure, your third down defense collapses, giving quarterbacks all the time in the world to pick you apart. It's time to stop pretending the same 4-man fronts and simple alignments are going to magically start working. This defense needs creativity, more stunts, more movement, more blitzing. At least then you're forcing offenses to react instead of letting them dictate the pace. So here's the real question for Cowboys fans: should this team blitz more? If your answer is yes, that means embracing more man coverage too. That's the trade-off. But in return, your corners don't have to cover for 4 seconds every play. They can attack. They can disrupt. They can play with confidence instead of hesitation. Now, this ties directly into another huge problem: the run fits. It's been an issue all season, and honestly, it's starting to feel like flashbacks to the Mike Nolan era: defenders out of position, gaps unaccounted for, and poor alignment before the snap. Take this example from the Panthers game: Carolina lined up in a 3 tight end set, all on the right side. Logically, that's where the blocking strength is, yet the Cowboys' defensive front was completely unbalanced. You had 3 defenders to the left of the center facing just 2 blockers, and 5 defenders on the right side facing 6 blockers. That's a math problem you can't ignore. And sure enough, the Panthers ran the ball exactly where the mismatch was, right at Dante Fowler, who was lined up standing and crashing inside. It's the kind of mistake that turns a manageable run into a chunk play, and it keeps happening. The Cowboys don't just need effort, they need discipline, structure, and smarter defensive planning. Because right now, the math ain't mathing, and it's costing them every week. The Cowboys' run defense continues to be a disaster, and it starts with the linebackers. Their gap discipline is all over the place. Even when the defense lines up correctly, they're still missing assignments and losing leverage. It's one thing to get out-schemed, but this is simply poor execution. The linebackers are struggling to diagnose plays, and the defensive line isn't helping. They're getting blown off the ball far too often. I watched Motzie Smith and Marshawn Kneeland get pushed nearly 10 yards back by tight ends. That's not just bad technique, that's a lack of physical dominance. And then there's Junior Fihoko, JT, whose average depth of tackle this season is 12 yards downfield. Yes, the sample size is small, but it paints an ugly picture. He's not holding up against double teams, and opposing offenses know it. Right now, the Cowboys might actually be better off playing Mazi Smith more often, and that's concerning, considering how raw he still is. Here's the bigger issue: Dallas ranks dead last in the NFL in using 5-man defensive fronts, according to Sports Info Solutions. Only 9.5% of their defensive snaps feature that look. In today's league, especially against physical rushing teams, that's unacceptable. When the Cowboys do deploy that 5-man front, it often looks like this. You've got Marquise Bell rolled down near the line, almost like a strong side linebacker, creating what looks like a 4-3 under or over front. But then you see Sam Williams lined up as a 3 technique, expected to handle interior run responsibilities. That's not his strength, and the result? Another chunk play allowed. This defense desperately needs to adjust how it uses its personnel. If you're going to run a 5-man front, commit to it properly. Use 3 legitimate defensive tackles, mix in Osa Odigizua, Mazi Smith, Chauncey Galston, or Marshawn Kneeland. Rotate in power, not finesse. The Cowboys have the talent to stop the run, they just aren't putting their players in the right positions. Until that changes, the same problems will keep repeating: poor fits, blown assignments, and drives that never seem to end. Let's be honest, the Cowboys' front 7 against the Panthers was a complete disappointment. The alignment made no sense. You had Marquise Bell playing too far outside over a slot receiver, and Sam Williams lined up at 3 technique on the interior. That's not using your personnel correctly, that's a coaching and schematic failure. Running more 5-man fronts isn't the problem, it's how they're being used. If you're going to deploy that look, you need the right players in the right spots. Stick with your 4 main defensive linemen, then add a true 5th down lineman who can hold his ground, not a hybrid rusher out of position. Right now, this run defense has completely fallen apart. They've gone from solid and disciplined early in the season to flat-out bad over the last few weeks. Even players who started strong, like Osa Odigizua and Kenny Clark, have regressed. Whether it's fatigue, injury, or lack of adjustment, the unit looks worn down and overmatched. The front 4 is getting pushed off the ball, the linebackers are attacking the wrong gaps, and the entire defense feels out of sync. It's not just one missed tackle or one blown assignment, it's a pattern of breakdowns that's turned an above-average unit into a liability. Osa isn't playing at the level the Cowboys need him to. At just 280 pounds, he's undersized for some of the roles the scheme is asking him to fill. That's not on him, that's on the coaching staff for not tailoring the defense to their players' strengths. This is what happens when fundamentals collapse. The Cowboys aren't winning the trenches, they're not fitting their gaps, and they're not tackling with purpose. Until that changes, until they start playing with discipline and smarter rotations, this defense will continue to crumble against physical teams. At this point, the Cowboys' linebacker situation might be the most pressing problem on the defensive side of the ball. Something has to change, whether it's bringing in new talent or restructuring how they're deployed, this group simply isn't getting it done. Against the Panthers, the run fits were all over the place. The linebackers were slow to react, often out of position, and consistently attacking the wrong gaps. That's a recipe for disaster, and it showed up over and over again on tape. Let's talk specifics. Kenneth Murray is the same player he's been his entire career, athletic, yes, but inconsistent and late to trigger. His reads are slow, his pursuit angles are off, and when he does commit, it's often to the wrong lane. You can't anchor a defense like that. He has the speed to help in coverage, but as an early down linebacker, he's been a liability. Right now, if the Cowboys are sticking with 2 linebacker sets against the run, I'd go with Jack Sanborn and Marquise Bell. That might not be the most dynamic duo, but at least it gives you better discipline and effort in the box. The difference when Sanborn is on the field is noticeable. The defense allows around 3.8 yards per carry with him in the lineup. That's a meaningful gap and speaks to the fundamentals he brings. The Cowboys need linebackers who can diagnose, react, and hit, not just chase. Until they fix that, it won't matter how creative their fronts are or how talented the secondary is. Every run-heavy opponent will continue to bully this defense right up the middle. The difference in performance when Jack Sanborn is on the field versus when he's not is staggering. With Sanborn playing, the Cowboys allow around 3.8 yards per carry. Without him, that number jumps to over 6.3 yards. That's not just a stat, that's the definition of inconsistency in the middle of your defense. Sanborn brings something this linebacker unit desperately lacks: discipline and awareness. When he's in, the front seven looks organized. When he's off, everything falls apart. Now, Shamar James is an exciting young talent. He's fast, he's energetic, and he flashes potential, but right now, he's still learning how to process what he sees. Too often, he shoots the wrong gap or overcommits, allowing running backs to cut back into open lanes. It's not effort, it's experience. With time, he could develop into a strong coverage linebacker, but he's not ready to anchor this defense yet. Pairing him with Kenneth Murray has only made things worse. Both players struggle with gap integrity, and that's killing the Cowboys' run defense. You can't win with linebackers who hesitate or misread plays, especially behind a front that's already losing ground. At this stage, Dallas might need to look outside the building for answers. Veteran names like Eric Kendricks or Demario Davis could stabilize the unit, though convincing proven veterans to join a struggling defense isn't easy. There are also potential trade or depth options like Logan Wilson, Jerome Baker, or Cody Barton, but none are guaranteed fixes. And yes, DeMarvion Overshown will eventually return from injury, which could reshape the group in the offseason. But right now, the Cowboys need a steady presence in the middle, someone who can lead, hit, and bring back the fundamentals this defense has lost. The message is simple: if Dallas wants to stop getting gashed every Sunday, it starts with smarter, tougher linebacker play. Until that changes, every opponent will attack the same weak spot, right down the heart of the defense. The Cowboys have another serious problem to address: Donovan Wilson. Something has to change with how he's being used, because the current approach just isn't working. Right now, Wilson is playing far too many deep safety snaps, and it's exposing his biggest weakness: coverage. He's not built to play in space or handle tight ends one-on-one downfield. Every week, it feels like at least one blown assignment involves Wilson being out of position or late to react. Look, Wilson brings toughness and leadership, but his skill set doesn't fit how he's being deployed. He's a box safety, plain and simple, a physical hitter who thrives near the line of scrimmage, not 20 yards deep in coverage. So the Cowboys have two options: either bench him, or move him back into a role that fits his strengths. Stop forcing him to play deep zones that don't match his game. If you need someone at free safety, give Wanya Thomas or Marquise Bell a real shot. Even Elijah Clark deserves a look. At this point, the Cowboys should be in the try-anything stage, because the current setup is costing them big plays. Wilson's inability to handle man coverage, especially against athletic tight ends, has become a weekly issue. If the team doesn't make a change soon, it's going to keep burning them, drive after drive, week after week. And while we're at it, there's another tough conversation to have: the Sam Williams experiment. He was expected to take a big step this season, but it just hasn't happened. His technique is raw, his gap discipline is shaky, and he's too often crashing inside and losing contain. That's not just a missed tackle, that's an open lane for a big run. As a pass rusher, he's flashed some potential, but not nearly enough to offset the mistakes. At this point, the Cowboys might need to reevaluate his role entirely. He has the physical tools, but until he becomes a consistent and disciplined defender, the defense will continue to suffer on the edges. At some point, the numbers stop lying, and for Sam Williams, that point has arrived. Over the last 4 weeks, he's racked up 4 penalties, 1 quarterback hit, and just 1 sack. His best plays have helped the other team more than his own. That's not an exaggeration, it's the reality of his production right now. Williams has 4 penalties, 4 missed tackles, and only 12 total pressures all season. That's a brutal ratio for someone who's supposed to be a pass-rushing difference-maker. And when you add in his struggles against the run, losing gap discipline, over-pursuing, and getting washed out of plays, it paints a clear picture: he's not performing at a starting caliber level. The Cowboys once hinted that they might want to extend him. But let's be honest, there's no reason to do that right now. Not with this level of inconsistency and lack of discipline. If it were up to me, I'd cut his snaps and give his pass rush reps to James Houston. Yes, Houston's undersized, and yes, he's not perfect against the run, but at least he brings burst, energy, and effort. That's more than we're seeing from Williams right now. As for the rest of the rotation, Clowney looked rusty, not terrible, but clearly still ramping up. Neal was banged up, which hurt his effectiveness against the run, and Ezra showed flashes of solid play but still needs consistency. But with Williams, it's the same story every year: penalties and frustration. He leads the defense with 4 flags, double the next guy. That's not bad luck, that's a lack of discipline. And for a team trying to find an identity and some stability on defense, that's the last thing they need.